Hey guys, I hope y'all are having a fantastic day today. My name's Alicia if you're new here, and today's video is going to be a Kroger grocery budget challenge where I fed my family of 7 for $60 for an entire week. Before we get started, I wanted to quickly mention that if you or your family are struggling for food, please reach out and get assistance. Y'all deserve to be fed, and that's what these things are there for. I also wanted to mention that I did try to get as much produce in the challenge as possible, and also some of the items that I will be using I already had on hand, but I am including them in the price, and I am using the store that I shopped at's price. I went around and price checked everything and made sure it was in stock the day that I was there, because I didn't want to just assume that they had everything I was shopping for. And then the last thing is I am using 3 freebie items. One of them is green onions because I regrew them from some that I had purchased a few weeks ago, and I've just been trimming them off as I need them. The second thing is soy sauce because I've bought it in both of my last 2 challenges. And the third thing is some tomatoes that we were given, and that's just because I didn't want those to go to waste. I had already planned out everything without them beforehand, and it was a good amount of tomatoes, but I planned all of the meals, and I had already even shopped for everything prior to receiving them. So I was just going to make all of the meals without them, and they would have all turned out just fine. But anyways, I hope y'all enjoy. Okay, so this is everything that I got, and if you can ignore my dirty table, then so can I. So we got 2 carrots, an onion, bananas, cabbage, don't drop, thing of garlic, 2 discount bags of apples, a 10-pound bag of potatoes, a 5-pound thing of grits, a wee little can of tomato paste, some oyster crackers, 3 8-ounce blocks of cheese, which we probably won't use all of those, 2 packs of hot dogs, 2 packs of ground pork, a 60 count of eggs, this thing of mild chili seasoning, and then this stuff I had on hand, but I'm going to count into the price, and that's a gallon of milk, the equivalent of 3 packets of fast rise yeast. I'm going to use the equivalent of 10 pounds of flour. I just didn't feel like refilling this thing right now. 2 pounds of rice. This is 2 half-pound bags of pinto beans, and then a can of pineapples, a can of spaghetti sauce, a can of green beans, and then things that I had that I'm not going to count in the price are soy sauce, these green onions that I regrew, and then all of these really beautiful tomatoes that my papa gave me for free. So there's everything. There's the total, and that's after tax. So for each day's breakfast, we had grits with either an egg or with some toast or bread some days. But either way, so this is what 7 servings of grits looks like. You start off with 10.5 cups of water, and then you're supposed to bring the water up to a boil, but I couldn't find my whisk. And then 3 3/4 cups of, is that right? No, 1 1/4 cup of the grits, and then I added in a little bit of cheese, but my family honestly could not eat this many grits every day, but that's what 7 servings looks like. So here's 2 days worth of breakfast, and then here's the other 5 days worth. For lunches, days 1 through 5, we had egg sandwiches with fruit, and for 6 days, there's 1 apple and 1 banana. And then on the 7th day, we will be having some fruit with dinner. And this is what one apple and one banana looks like. Mostly some of it was already taken. For the other 2 days, we had leftovers. I'll show you those at the end, and I will be showing you the bread later on in the video. So on night 1, we had egg roll in a bowl over rice. So I'm going to start out by cooking up my ground pork a little bit. And this is about 3/4 of a pound because each one of the packages was 1.5 pounds. Once it's cooked for just a couple minutes, I'm going to add in 1/4 of the onion that I chopped up and let it soften for just a little bit. And then I will add in a couple cloves of the garlic that I chopped up. And I just cook that for about a minute or so before adding in the cabbage. And I only ended up using one of the carrots because whenever I got them both shredded up, it was a lot of carrots. And if you're wondering why my hand is orange, it's because of those carrots. Anyways, once I add in the cabbage and carrots, I'm going to add in some soy sauce. I also add in just a little bit of water to kind of help it steam. I'm going to put a lid on it and let it cook for about 10 to 12 minutes. But you'll just want to cook it until it's to the cabbage and the carrots are to your desired softness. On the side, I've cooked 2 cups of rice, and I just do a 2-to-1 ratio on this stovetop. So I did 4 cups of water and 2 cups of rice. I brought it up to a boil, and then I put a lid on it and turned the heat to a medium low. And then I turned the heat completely off, but left the lid on for another 10 minutes, and it turns out perfect each and every time. The only thing that I can think of that is on my arm is maybe sriracha, because I'd gotten it out to put on top, but I'm not really sure how it would have got there. But if you can ignore it, then so can I. Those are green onions, and I just chopped up a few of them. If you don't have green onions, it's fine. This was one of my favorite dinners that we had this. So on night 2, we had vegetable soup with some crackers. So I'm starting out by cooking up the other half of that package of ground pork. And then I'm also going to add in another 1/4 of the onion. And I will let those cook together for a little bit. And then I'm going to add in a couple of cloves of minced garlic. And then I'm going to let that cook for just a minute before adding in a few of the tomatoes that I chopped up. And I also add in a few potatoes that I've peeled and diced up as well. Then I'm going to add in the wee little can of tomato paste. I like to take both ends off and then push the bottom through. I just find that the easiest way to get everything, or mostly everything, out of there. And then I'm going to add some salt and pepper and some water. You can add as much as or as little as you want. It just depends on how soupy you want it. With the amount of flavor that this had, probably could have even added a little bit more water than I did, and it still would have been plenty flavorful. After I add in the water, I'm also going to add in some, or the bag of frozen mixed vegetables. And then I'm just going to put a lid on this and let it kind of simmer for about 20 to 30 minutes. Really, you just need to simmer it until the potatoes are fully cooked, and then you're good to go. This is what it looked like after it had simmered for a little bit and everything was cooked. And here's what my bowl looked like. So on night 3, we did a potato, green bean, and hot dog situation. The inspiration for this came from Taylor Elmore's channel. She's made this several times on her channel, but the ways that I've seen her make it, she either uses smoked sausage or chicken. So, I couldn't find any smoked sausage. Generally, they have like a $1 smoked sausage, and they didn't have even like the more expensive ones the day I was shopping. So I just went with hot dogs, and I figured they would work out very well. Normally she does hers in the crock pot, but I didn't get mine started early enough. So I'm using the Instant Pot, and I almost messed it up, but it still turned out phenomenal either way. My potatoes got a little bit more cooked than I would like them to. And I am adding in a chicken bouillon cube. If you do not have a chicken bouillon cube, you can take all of the scraps from the vegetables and just put it in a pot with some water and boil it for a while with some salt and pepper, and you'll have a vegetable stock. And I actually plan to do this in the future. I had planned to do it for the video, but I forgot. So anywho, I'm using that cube, but like I said, anywho, so I'm going to pressure cook that for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to add in my can of green bean and my chopped up hot dogs. I'm going to let that sit for another 5 minutes just so those can get warmed through nicely. And this was so good. Like, I think this has been my favorite challenge yet, because literally all the meals are like stuff that I absolutely love. Which I loved all the other foods too that I've created, but like all of these are like my favorite foods. Like potatoes, chili, all the things. But this is what my plate looked like, or my bowl. I just added some Louisiana to the top. So on night 4, we're doing chili with crackers. And I'm actually starting this the night before. So I already picked through my pinto beans. That's 1 pound of pinto beans. And I made sure to rinse them off. And then that's half of the other package of the ground pork. I went ahead and cooked up the whole package and just set half of it to the side for later in the week. And then the jar of spaghetti sauce, and I'm going to put water in it to make sure to get all of it out of there. And then 1/4 of the onion, a few cloves of garlic, the chili seasoning packet, and then I use, I think, 5 of the tomatoes. And I know that seems like a lot, but the recipe that I'm basing this chili off of is my grandma's recipe. And she never adds fresh tomatoes or any kind of diced up tomatoes to her chili. She only adds in pinto beans, meat, and spaghetti sauce and chili seasoning. And, of course, water to kind of thin it out a little bit. So that's why I said, you know, I know that this recipe will work and turn out just as good without the fresh tomatoes in it. My chili that I would typically make kind of looks like everything but the kitchen sink went in. But that, you know, everybody has their own recipe, and I love hers just as much as I love my typical recipe. And so, anyways, I'm going to let this cook all night and all day the next day until we're ready to eat. I also add in quite a lot of water, actually a little bit more than I would have preferred, but it turned out great, like phenomenal. And then this is what it looked like after it cooked all night and all day the next day. You can see it looks absolutely delicious. And here's my bowl. I don't really like crackers in my chili all too very much, so I just opted to have mine without the crackers. But you can choose to have crackers in it. Everybody else did, and some people even had cheese on theirs. So on night 5, we're doing chili dogs. So I'm showing you how the bread that I made all week, or how I did the bread all week. But I didn't actually do it like this all week because I'm actually experimenting here, and it worked out phenomenal. So basically, I'm taking the bread recipe that I shared a couple weeks ago, or I can't remember when it was. either way, it's that recipe, but I'm taking out the oil and the sugar or sweetener. Because everything else I either bought in the challenge or it's salt. So anyways, so I'm starting off with 2 cups of very warm water, and to that I added in 1 teaspoon of yeast, and that's a little under half the amount that the other recipe calls for. And then I added in 1 egg, and then I'm slowly mixing in my flour. I used 5 cups total each and every single time that I made this recipe, and I think it's because of using less ingredients, less wet ingredients. And I also am doing this by hand because one of y'all asked me if it could be done by hand, so I wanted to make sure that it could. And then this still once again makes 2 loaves, and for one of the loaves I'm actually going to turn them into hot dog buns. And there's enough flour to do the 2 loaves of bread each and every day. There's enough flour, yeast, and eggs. And in the description box, I'm going to kind of list out everything for y'all. So here I am shaping everything. Well, I'm starting to divide it up into the hot dog buns, and then you'll see how I kind of shape them out. And then I let this rise for probably, I think it was 2 hours. Because we're using less yeast, so it has to rise longer than if we were using the full amount. You wouldn't have to let it rise at all, hardly, unless you just really want it to, because all of the rising would happen in the oven. But because we're using a little under half the amount that it calls for, it needs that rise time before you bake it. And then I just baked it, I want to say I baked these at 400 for about 15 to 20 minutes. I'll also look that up and leave it in the description box for y'all, because I do have it wrote down. Here's everything we use for our chili, except for we only use 2 packages. I just wanted to show y'all what it looked like, because I was so shocked. And this is not what our finished bowls look like. We actually added in chili around our chili dog. Well, my kids had bowls of chili on the side because they like their chili dogs deconstructed. Anyways, but I didn't think that would look as appetizing, so I just showed it. We also used the last quarter of the onion on this night. My husband and I did, because we're the only ones that like fresh onion. Anywho, here you go. This is what it looked like. On night 6, we're doing pork and pineapple fried rice. I'm going to, well, I started out by cooking up 2 cups of rice on the side, the exact same way as I did for the egg roll in a bowl. And ideally I would have done this the night before and had like cold refrigerated rice, but I did not. So you can kind of see like how many carrots just one of the carrots was here, because like that's a lot of carrots in my opinion. So I sauteed those up for a little bit, and then I'm adding in some green onions and the last of the garlic. And I also scrambled up 3 eggs on the side. And now I'm going to add in my ground pork, and I will let that saute for a little bit. And I'm also going to be slowly adding in some of the pineapple juice and also some soy sauce, just to kind of get some flavor in the carrots and pork and everything. And then I'm going to add in the pineapples here in a minute and just let those warm up a little bit. And then I'm going to take everything out of the skillet and put it in a bowl off to the side, so I can get the rice in the skillet and get some like toasted rice bits. I don't know. And I'm also going to add a whole lot of soy sauce to the rice, because that's our main seasoning component. Of course, if you have onion powder, garlic powder, anything like that, then that would be great additions. But, you know, you just work with what you have on hand. maybe you don't have, you know, all the fancy things. Salt and pepper is going to be just as good, and it will still be super tasty. So my main goal with these challenges is just to give some inspiration, to show that it's not impossible to feed a family on a small budget. I had recently seen some people saying that because of inflation, it's no longer possible, and I disagreed. I did not agree with them, so I wanted to set out to give inspiration to people who might need it. And as you can see, my skillet is already overflowing, and now I'm adding in more. It's like the huge tower of fried rice. But I got everything mixed in without having to remove anything. Here's what my bowl looked like, and there was plenty of rice, as you clearly saw by the very overflowing skillet a minute ago. On night 7, we had the leftover vegetable soup with some toast. So here's all the leftovers. Here's the leftovers from the egg roll in a bowl. Here's the leftovers from the potato and green beans. We had one hot dog left over. This is after we had chili dogs, so after we eaten both times. Here's the leftovers from the fried rice. So if you were to make the 2 loaves of bread a day, the way that I showed, this is what you would have left. Oh, and of course, eat. Like, everyone eats in serving of grits. There's 49 grits, so 7 times 7 is 49, so there'd be none of those left. We had some left, but that was because we didn't eat a full serving. Or, well, my kids can't eat a full serving. But anyways, you'd have 5 pounds of potatoes, 3 cups of flour, a cup of rice, 1 egg, and half a teaspoon of yeast. So here's the leftovers from the cheese. I'm actually only going to count for 2 of the blocks of cheese because we actually had over a block of cheese. It's just somebody opened the last block because they couldn't find the other block. Anyways, but for the cheese, we just kind of used it however we wanted. We put some in the grits. My kids like to have cheese on a lot of their meals, so they had the cheese a lot, but I didn't. So that's why you didn't see like a whole lot of cheese, is because it was mostly on my kids' plates. But you can kind of use it however you want. This is all of the vegetable scraps. I actually just froze mine today, which is the day after the challenge, because I do plan on making vegetable broth with it, and I'd fully intended to for this challenge. But yeah, anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Know that Jesus loves y'all, and I love y'all too, and I hope y'all have a great day.